Is it too late to make a video about rationality rules? Probably, but that won't stop me.
He is coming. Cover your butt.
Steven finally came out with his video correcting the mistakes he made in his last video on transgender athletes, and oh boy, is it a mess. First, some praise for Steven. Admitting that you are wrong is difficult, and doing it in such a public manner is far more difficult. I was glad to see that you understood how your statements were transphobic, even if you refused to call them transphobic. First, Steven decides that he does not have the burden of proof, even though he made a video claiming that trans women have an unfair advantage and that actions needed to be taken.
In a nutshell, I find the arguments and logic that currently permit transgender women to compete against biological women to be remarkably flawed, and I'm convinced that unless quickly rectified, this will kill women's sport. And this brings us comfortably to the burden of proof and where exactly it lies.
Woodford needs to do 3 things. First, he needs to show which of these traits survive the HRT process and to which degree. Second, he needs to demonstrate superior performance on part of trans women on HRT. Third, he needs to demonstrate a causal relation leading from point 1 to point 2. Without that, he has nothing.
Actually, no. The burden of proof is on you, us, and here's why. Given that in most events men outperform women by 10 to 30%, we need to show that HRT completely removes, or at least sufficiently mitigates, the athletic advantages granted by male puberty.
No. How? Just how can you call yourself rational or even logical? You made a claim and it's up to you to back it up. This is some flat earther creationist level of thinking, trying to shift the burden of proof onto others. Steven, at least partially, has admitted that he still needs to fulfill the burden of proof, and yet, throughout this whole video, he continues to make the claim that trans women have an advantage before he has even demonstrated it to be true.
At least sufficiently mitigates the athletic advantages granted by male puberty, and the benefits that she received from male puberty are now mitigated, is an extremely viable advantage for trans women to utilise.
Steven doesn't just attempt to shift the burden of proof, he continues with his claim without providing any evidence. Next, Steven goes on to complain about Essence of Thought, pointing out that people were not concerned about trans women in sports until they started winning.
So the first of Ethel's objections that I'd like to respond to refers to the fact that trans women don't always win.
What's interesting about the Rachel McKinnon case is the fact that the person responsible for attacking her, Wagner Asali, who came third, beat McKinnon in 10 out of 12 previous events. And not only did Asali fail to raise issue during those times, but apparently those 10 times can be ignored since McKinnon won the 2018 UCI Track Championship. The implication here being that a trans woman competing isn't a problem, just so long as she never wins.
Ethel went on to make the same point about Laurel Hubbard.
Whilst Hubbard holds the snatch record, she does not hold the clean and jerk record or the total record for her category.
And also in regards to Hannah Mouncey.
Also, she's been on the losing team before, so it's not like her presence guarantees victory.
Now, the problem with this objection is that it completely misses the point. If one has an unfair advantage but loses, they still had an unfair advantage. Fairness, which is the foundation of sports and athletics, isn't about who crosses the line first. It's about ensuring that all participants spring from the same starting block. If I ran a marathon against Mo Farah and was given a 30-minute advantage, he'd still easily beat me, but I'd still have had a significant unfair advantage. Hence, the question is whether or not McKinnon, Hubbard, Mouncey, and other trans women who have experienced male puberty still retain any of the athletic advantages that they receive from said male puberty.
At first, this may seem like a legitimate objection. Why would Essence of Thought bring up winning as a measure for whether someone has an advantage or not? As it turns out, the reason Essence of Thought talks about winning and losing as a measure of whether someone has an advantage or not is because they are responding to Steven.
The transgender woman Rachel McKinnon is the UCI Masters Track Championships Women's 35 to 44 Sprint Gold Medalist. The transgender woman Laurel Hubbard won the 2017 Australian International Women's Weightlifting 90 kg and over division. But because Terry Miller and Andrea Yearwood, who are both transgender women, so easily took first and second place, Selena was eliminated.
So the top 6 spots qualify for the New England meet, and I came in 8th place, and the 2 transgender athletes came 1 and 2. So if they weren't there, then my friend and I from another school would have been in those 2 spots and would have qualified.
And so here we have a very real example of a young, talented woman losing a potential scholarship and career due to this issue.
So many women that used to be men that transition to being women that are now dominating these sports, and these women feel like they're being fucked over. Like weightlifting. There was this Australian weightlifter who's a trans woman who's competing as a woman and is fucking breaking records left and right. And everybody's like, this is crazy. She's an inspiration.
Yeah.
No, she's a guy. She used to be a guy, and now she's breaking these women's records. Like, what are we doing? This is crazy.
Yeah.
If winning was never your concern, Stephen, then why bring it up over and over again? You used it as a metric first. You can't complain that others countered you by pointing out that it's an inconsistent metric. And it's rather dishonest of you to make it seem as if this is an objection that Essence of Thought came up with out of thin air. Next, I want to address the idea of fairness. There are 2 major flaws with the way that Stephen talks about fairness. First, he never defines fairness. He will often talk about unfair advantage, but fails to explain what he means. His analogy regarding starting position doesn't really explain anything either. There are no regulations limiting how much money a team can spend on training, coaches, etc. Hell, I'm sure some teams have better coaches and others some better equipment and facilities. And yet, I don't see you getting on your soapbox to create a fairness in training. There are too many variables to determine if one provides any advantage over another. Some of these advantages are biological and some are not. This leads to the second issue. When you talk about fairness and advantages, you are setting a limit to how well women can perform in sports. Women can only perform so well, otherwise they must be cheating the system. This is the issue that Caster Semenya is currently facing. As a woman, she is too good, therefore she must have an unfair advantage. Because of this issue, some people have wanted Caster to take hormone suppressants, not because she was cheating the system, but because as a woman, she was too good. If a woman was too tall, would you ban her from playing basketball? If a woman can build muscle faster, would you ban her from wrestling? At what point, Stephen, is a woman too good to play sports? Why does it matter where the advantage comes from? What is the difference between a cis woman being taller than average and a trans woman being taller than average? Finally, let's talk about the underlying argument in your videos. Underlying all of this is the constant fear-mongering that men will pretend to be women in order to cheat the system. This, Stephen, is no better than saying that men will pretend to be women in order to molest little girls in bathrooms. In the end, you're still promoting a harmful idea that by allowing equal treatment of trans women, you are opening the floodgates to a more terrible evil. In your first video, you said that your video wasn't about whether transgender people should be allowed to use certain bathrooms.
This debate, this video, is about women's sport and what constitutes fair competition. It's not about whether or not transgender people should be allowed to use certain bathrooms.
And yet, you're using the same argument.
Well, if you put a stall, for instance, the Illinois lawsuit where we filed a lawsuit against the Department of Education in a school district outside of Chicago, they did install a few privacy stalls inside the girls' locker room. But that doesn't solve anything because those stalls are inside the locker room. And the biologically male student has to walk through the locker room while girls are changing for PE class. They're in a state of undress. That happens every day of the year, every year of school because PE is a mandatory class.
How is your argument any different? You're making the same argument as you were before. All you have done is remove the more blatant transphobic rhetoric, but what is left is the same scare tactics of men will pretend to be women to invade female spaces. In doing so, you are still arguing for the exclusion of trans individuals from basic human rights. You are willing to deny all trans individuals equality based on an unfounded fear.